What is up, everybody out there in podcast land? Welcome to, arguably, the single greatest episode every year of Sports Frenzy 2.0. I am your host, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Unfortunately, your Uncle Dave, the Conquistador Dave Height, family obligations, couldn't make it. I was a little bit under the weather when we normally tape Wednesday nights, so you're getting this about 12 hours later than normal. It's Thursday morning, September the 4th, but we still have plenty of time to discuss, to prognosticate, to predict what is going to happen in the 2025-2026 NFL season. The most wonderful time of the year. Trust me, about 80% of this show is going to be about the NFL and college football. Of course, we have to recap Week 1, a glorious Week 1 in college football. We'll get to that later. But part of the benefit of doing this a little later than normal, I always promise you will get the new Sports Frenzy 2.0 episode every Thursday. Your favorite politically incorrect sports commentary podcast. Now, normally I do that as a safeguard. We record very late on Wednesday nights. Usually the new episodes drop very, very late, about an hour or two before midnight on Wednesday, but we always say Thursday to be safe in case a situation like this arises where Dave and I are both out of commission for one reason or another. So again, recording Thursday morning, September the 4th. So, maybe a little bit different vibe. Instead of adult beverages, I've got coffee and caffeine to get me going through the next couple hours with you. So let's talk about the headlines from the last week in the NFL first, and then we will dig into our panel's season predictions. The benefit that I alluded to a few minutes ago, give the panel extra time to get all of their picks in. So all 8 panelists have their picks for NFL Week 1, NCAA Football Week 2, and the NFL season predictions, except for one unbelievably fucking stupid exception, which I will explain to you when we get there. All right. Injuries are a question as we head into Week 1, as they always are. If you play fantasy football like I do, I drafted more teams than normal this year. I drafted 3 teams. That includes the Sports Frenzy 2.0 League. I drafted 2 other teams for practice, for fun, and then I joined, I think I mentioned this a week or two ago, Yahoo has something new called Guillotine Leagues, which sounded like a very, very interesting concept, so I jumped in on one of those. So I'm actually in 4 leagues this year. Now, when I was younger, I was really nutsy cuckoo. Your Uncle Dave says I have problems now because I watch all the fantasy football shows. Boy, 20 years ago, I set up a second email account on Yahoo. Just because at that point in time, they limited you to 4 teams only per email account. So I signed up for a second email. Again, this is 20 years ago. Just so I could have 4 more fantasy teams. So I'm showing admirable restraint. But again, injuries are a big part of things. Biggest injury to report, confirmed injury. We're not talking about the nagging, will they play Week 1, won't they play Week 1 kind of stuff. We all know Chris Godwin's probably going to be out for a couple weeks at least. But confirmed, and this is not going to help the Jets going up against the Steelers. Very important, cog in their offensive line. Right guard Elijah Vera Tucker has torn his triceps. He is out for the season. Massive, massive loss on that offensive line for the Jets. Now, I personally, and we'll get to the season preview in a minute, I'm not expecting much from the Jets, even disregarding this injury. Now, this is also the time of the year where we see contracts extended and reworked. We had a little bit of that last week, of course. Most notably, Trey Hendrickson got a little bit of extra money, but he did not get extended with the Bengals, so he will go most likely into free agency next year. We shall see. You know, you got the tags and all that stuff. So this week, first up, San Francisco wide receiver Juwan Jennings. Similar situation to Trey Hendrickson. Wanted a new deal, didn't get it. But the 49ers added an extra $3 million in possible incentives for him to achieve to bump his contract up, I believe. With these incentives, if they are achieved, he gets somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million this upcoming season. But, of course, the big news of the week involving contract negotiations was, of course, Micah Parsons. Stellar pass rusher, maybe. Formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, now traded to the Green Bay Packers. Yay! Thank you, Jerry. As a Bears fan, I'm really looking forward to dealing with him twice a year now for the next 4 or 5 years. Thanks, Jerry. Again, Micah Parsons traded to the Packers, and have Jerry Jones trying to spin this, going on every possible show that he can. And he just sounds like a doddering old fool. I've said it for years and years and years and years about the Cowboys. The minute he drove Jimmy Johnson out was the minute he destroyed the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want to hear about the Barry Switzer championship because, again, that was a carryover, basically won with Jimmy Johnson's players. Ever since then, they have done next to nothing. You had the whole Micah Parsons spectacle in that last game where he was on the sidelines eating nachos. He was laying down and snoozing on a medical table, a gurney, whatever it was. Didn't look good. Not a good look at all for either Micah Parsons or the Dallas Cowboys. So the Cowboys trade Micah Parsons to Green Bay for defensive tackle Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks. So again, the Spin Meister, Jerry Jones, telling everybody, oh, this was a wonderful deal for us, and look at all the money we saved. And now he's basically, by going to Green Bay, enabling us to get 6 players for 1. I know Jerry is very, very rich, makes more money in an hour than I will see in a year. But he can't do math very well at his advanced age, or he doesn't understand the concept of NFL roster construction. Because number one, the trade involved Kenny Clark. So basically, Kenny Clark, decent, solid defensive tackle, will help stop the run game, but he's getting up there in years. He takes over Micah Parsons' roster spot, basically. Then Jerry's trying to convince us because now Micah Parsons got a 4-year, $188 million deal with the Packers. This is shocking. This is not something that we normally see from the Green Bay Packers. I alluded to it a few minutes ago. There are questions about whether or not Micah Parsons is really worth it. There are a lot of statistics out there showing that he does not play well in important games. I still think this is going to be an initial boost for the Packers in terms of team morale, energy level, confidence, and we'll see how it plays out down the road. So Jerry Jones says, okay, we saved all that money because we didn't have to pay it. Okay. Technically, what you're saving is the cap money for this season, which is what you would have had to pay him. You can use your twisted logic and say we're saving all that money from the $188 million deal. Okay. But then the whole 6-player thing drives me nuts. Because your roster's already full, Jerry. You can't just tack 6 guys onto the roster. You're going to have to cut players in order to bring other players in. And the first round picks that you receive from Green Bay in the next 2 years are most likely going to be very, very late first round picks. 20s or even the low 30s. You're going to get good players, but not great players. And again, Jerry Jones thinks he's a genius when it comes to being a general manager as well as the owner. And we all know he's been very erratic. He's gotten better lately. But remember the awful, terrible picks that he would make from basically 2000 through 2015? Jerry Jones is another one of these blowhard billionaires who thinks, because I have money, I can do anything and it's brilliant and it's smart, and that's not true. And we'll talk about a couple more of those later on in the show when we get to the NBA. But again, Jerry, the math ain't mathin', okay? You're not getting 6 players in return for trading Micah Parsons. Yes, there's money you did not spend that maybe you had budgeted. And yes, you can use that money towards bringing in some free agents. But you're going to have to cut other players. You're not getting 6 players in this deal with Micah Parsons. All right, enough about that. I used to have respect for the Cowboys when it was Jerry and Jimmy. I've lost all respect for that organization, and I hate the fact that they still show them 7 or 8 times a year on national TV and cram them down our throats when they're not a good football team. They're mediocre at best. But they're America's team. No, they're not. No, they're not. All right. Season predictions. Now, I've got the panel's predictions in. I will go through them. But what I want to do first is do a quick overview of the AFC and the NFC. Let's start with the AFC. Let's start with the East. Bills, I think, even though I'm not a fan of Sean McDermott, I think that team is good enough. They will basically have a cakewalk to win the East. The Patriots will be marginally better. I thought a month or two ago they might have a shot at maybe 9 or 10 wins. I'm thinking I'm overestimating now. I'm going to knock the Patriots down a little bit here. Maybe 7 or 8 wins. And that's still an improvement with Mike Vrabel. I don't like the Jets at all. I don't like the Dolphins at all. This is why I think the Bills will easily win that division. They might have it locked up by early December. The Jets, the whole Justin Fields experiment. And I do hope Justin Fields plays well, of course, drafted by the Bears. But the whole overall vibe of the Jets, different from the Dallas vibe. Now, it's similar yet different. Similar in that I don't like either one of the teams because all these big markets talk about is the Cowboys, the Jets. At least the Cowboys have been decent and have a history of winning. You have to go back a couple decades, but the Jets have no history of winning. They have to go back all the way to Joe Namath. At least the Jets fans know this. The Jets fans aren't necessarily your typical arrogant New York fan in that they understand their team is a mess. Their owner stinks. Their owner, just like Jerry Jones, will find a way to screw things up. I think Aaron Glenn needs time to get the team molded to his image after the Robert Saleh, Aaron Rodgers debacle. I don't like a lot of the young stars they have. I don't like Garrett Wilson. I think he's overrated. I don't like Breece Hall. He's turning into a bust. Is that culture? Is that coaching? Is it scouting? I don't know, but I'm just not a fan. And the Dolphins, I hate their head coach, Cheech McDaniel. You've got all the infighting going on supposedly between Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill, I have a bad feeling, is going to be a problem this year. I don't know about the defense. Yeah, you got Minkah Fitzpatrick, but who else? You've got the tools on offense. You do. You've got Devon Achane, but now you've got a calf issue with him, which is scary because the calf issue usually leads to an Achilles issue. Everybody's saying, oh, Jalen Waddle will finally emerge this year. What are the odds he's going to be healthy for 17 games? You can't depend on Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill's problem is attitude. Jalen Waddle's problem is injury history. And then Tua, they're going to have to keep Tua upright. If we see one more scary hit on him, his career's probably done. All right, we move on to the AFC South. This is another division where I say you're going to have a cakewalk for the Texans, although I'm not. This is the worst division in football. To me, easily the worst division in football. Because to me, all four of these teams are mediocre at best. Now, the Texans have some semblance of stability with DeMeco Ryans, who I like as a head coach. I'm not a fan of C.J. Stroud. I did not like the massive step backward he took last year. Nico Collins is awesome. They can't seem to find a receiver to pair with him, though. Tank Dell's always hurt. Now, Christian Kirk, he might be hurt to start the season. They don't have a backfield. They're going to rely on possibly Nick Chubb because Joe Mixon's injured. Don't be shocked if the Texans win the AFC South with a 9-8 record. The other three teams, Jacksonville's the wild card here because not going to the playoffs as a wild card, but how much better can they get? They can't go. I can't see them getting any worse. They got Liam Cohen now, first year, offensive genius, another one of those. Is Trevor Lawrence going to live up to his contract? Is he finally going to show the glimmer of potential realized, being a number one overall pick years ago? They've got a very weak running back by committee. They do have decent skill position players on the outside with Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter now. How much is Hunter going to play on either side of the ball? I could see Jacksonville finishing second in the division. But again, what does that mean? 7-10? 6-11? I hate the Colts. Colts are awful. I think that team is a mess, and I'm not trying to rip on the legacy of Jim Irsay. I just don't think they've done a very good job over the last couple years hiring head coach Shane Steichen. He isn't the worst coach ever, but he hasn't shown me much in terms of putting him in Canton. Let's put it that way. They made the one awful, terrible draft pick that could come back and haunt them for years. Anthony Richardson looks like an absolute and complete bust. If you have to turn the reins over to Daniel Jones, you know there's something wrong with your team. And the shame is, the Colts, again, another team that has good offensive skill position players. I love Ty Warren. I wish the Bears had taken him instead of Colson Loveland. Downs, Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, of course, in the backfield. Solid skill position players. The defense is a big question mark. I don't like the Colts. I think Shane Steichen gets fired after this year, and they have to basically start a rebuild. The Titans are on their way up, but it's going to take time. Cam Ward, you know I love my Cam Ward. He's awesome beyond belief, but he's going to need time to develop. He gets an awful Week 1 matchup against the Denver Broncos, one of the best defenses in the league. It's going to take time. Again, they've got some decent skill position players. Calvin Ridley seems to have good chemistry with Cam Ward. Tony Pollard, every time it seems you write him off, he ends up putting up some solid numbers. But again, the Titans, this is going to be one of those situations we've seen here recently with the Bears, where you're going to draft the quarterback with the number 1 pick, but you're keeping the regime, the coaching staff, the general manager, who have failed you and got you to the point where you got that number 1 pick. And that's probably what's going to happen in Tennessee. Callahan's probably gone after this year, because this is another team like the Patriots, where initially I thought maybe I give them 5 or 6 wins. Now I'm thinking maybe 4-13. Maybe 5. If Cam can get them to 5 or 6 wins, that would be a tremendous year. But I still think Callahan gets fired. And then they bring in a bigger name coach who goes, hey, I can take Cam Ward and take him to the next level. AFC North, Ravens win it. Pretty much a no doubt, no brainer for me. Second place, Bengals. If Al Golden can somehow get something out of this defense, Bengals go 10-7, 11-6. They're a wild card team. Steelers, this will be the first year where Mike Tomlin does not make the playoffs in a long, long time. I don't know how they're going to be any better than they were last year. Everybody's still thinking Aaron Rodgers has got some kind of magic left. He's got one receiver. He's got DK Metcalf. I don't see it. I don't see it. A vote of confidence in the backfield, giving Jaylen Warren an extended deal. So that means that, to me, number 1, Jaylen Warren is going to end up taking the bulk of the carries. So at least there's some stability there. But the other problem is Caleb Johnson was their highly touted rookie running back pick in the draft. And he has had a very bad camp in preseason. So that's not good for Pittsburgh. Now, Tomlin and Rodgers will probably gut them to 7 or 8 wins, but again, they will miss the playoffs. Finally, the Browns. We all know the Browns are a mess. Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Jerome Ford is your lead running back. Okay, Jerry Jeudy, Tillman on the outside. You got a great tight end in David Njoku. Cleveland wins 4 games at most. In the West, the AFC West, I don't know how they're going to do it. I'm not a fan of how they've been playing the last year. But the Chiefs will somehow miraculously figure out a way to win the West again. But it's going to get tighter and it's going to get closer, and this might be their last hurrah. They are getting older. Even Patrick Mahomes, you wouldn't believe it, but he's starting to creep up there in age. Travis Kelce could be done after this year. You've got Rashee Rice on suspension, which means Xavier Worthy is going to have to step it up. You've got your committee in the backfield with Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. It'll be good enough, but I don't think you're going to see the miracle wins like you did last year. I think this is going to be key because I think this will put the Bills and the Ravens ahead of them when it comes to home field advantage in the playoffs. I think the Chiefs will lose 6 or 7 games, but they will still eke out the AFC West title. Denver is coming. I think Denver next year, if the trajectory stays on the path that it's on, they end up taking over the AFC West next year. Bo Nix gets better. Sean Payton continues to mold the roster the way he wants it. Still don't know if he has his running back yet. You got the young kid they just drafted, Harvey. You've got J.K. Dobbins. If Harvey ends up being something special, that is really going to push the time frame up for success for the Broncos. You got Cortland Sutton as your number 1 receiver. Very good, very solid. Now you bring in Evan Ingram at tight end. Very good, very solid if he can stay healthy. I like the Broncos to finish 2nd this year in the West. Chargers 3rd. I think you will see a repeat this year where all 3 make the playoffs. I've said this for the last year and a half. There's something about the Chargers, something about them that comes off as cheap. Now, the Bengals are always accused of being cheap. Oh, they're not going to re-sign Trey Hendrickson. They're going to let him walk. Why aren't the Chargers ever subjected to this scrutiny? Because they paid a ton to get Jim Harbaugh as head coach, and they did pay Justin Herbert. Well, the Bengals paid Joe Burrow, and the Bengals also paid for 2 top-level wide receivers. Where are the Chargers spending their money? They had to wait to the last minute to bring in their old pal Keenan Allen as basically their second wide receiver. Ladd McConkey is good. I don't know if he's great. You're relying a lot on young Omarion Hampton in the backfield. Now, Najee Harris has been cleared. He's supposedly going to either start week 1, this coming Friday night in Brazil, or he's going to take up a lot of the carries. But it's all going to be Omarion Hampton. Just like Harvey with the Broncos, Hampton with the Chargers, the rookie running back. Which one of these teams is going to hit pay dirt with their rookie running back? Now, that leads us to the last team in the AFC, the Las Vegas Raiders. They have the stud rookie running back, hopefully, in Ashton Junty. But they've got other issues. I think they're going to be better. Pete Carroll, you got Tom Brady in the ownership group. Geno Smith will at least bring some level of consistency to the quarterback position. You've got the best tight end with Brock Bowers, best tight end in the NFL. The problem is on defense, what do you got outside Max Crosby? And on in terms of wide receivers, to help out Geno Smith, you've got a disgruntled Jacoby Myers, and you've got the ancient Amari Cooper. So, you guys tell me. I think the Raiders will be a little bit better than expected, but 6-11, 7-10 seems like their ceiling. All right, moving on to the NFC East. Tonight, September the 4th, season opening game, Eagles and Cowboys. I've already kind of expounded on the Cowboys. I think, again, you've got all these people that just fawn over the Cowboys every year, and you're hearing it again this year, and I think it's a joke. The Cowboys will be lucky to avoid the basement in the NFC East this year. George Pickens, how do we know how good George Pickens is going to be? He was awful in Pittsburgh. He's got an attitude. How's he going to react the minute adversity sets in, which could happen tonight? Because I think the Eagles are going to blow their doors off in Philadelphia. Dak Prescott, he's a warrior, but they don't have a solid running game. Again, a very, very rickety committee for the Cowboys in the backfield. CeeDee Lamb, of course, very consistent as the number one wideout, but now you've lost Micah Parsons on the defensive side. And did you notice Jerry, by the way, right after he lost Micah Parsons or he traded him? Of course, he'll tell you it's a win. He had to pay Deron Bland. Just, hey, look, I pay my players. And nobody's saying he doesn't pay his players. But he negotiates contracts badly. He overpays when he didn't have to. He did that with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. If he signed them just a little bit earlier, we're talking weeks, he would have saved himself tens of millions of dollars on both those deals. But yeah, I re-signed Deron Bland. I'm very generous. I'm a smart owner. Whatever. The reason why I say the Cowboys might be in the cellar in the NFC East is because I like the Giants. I do like what the Giants are doing. This was one of the few times where keeping a coach and a GM together and giving them one more shot was a smart move. This was not Matt Eberflus with the Bears, okay? Daboll's a solid football guy. Injuries, quarterback issues. It looks like this is going to be a bridge year. And I mean that in a good way. They're finally putting together a talented roster. You've got good pass rushers with Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Burns. You've got Malik Neighbors, who looks like a very good wide receiver. Again, you've got another situation, though, with the backfield where you're going to have a committee possibly between Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scatterbo. Lots of teams. You can tell already, we're just over halfway through. Lots of teams have this issue. The quarterback. You're starting off with Russell Wilson. I get it. That's fine. But did you notice the news that came out within the last couple days? Everybody assumed Jameis Winston was going to be the number 2, the backup. Jackson Dart, the rookie, is now listed at number 2 on the depth chart at quarterback. So, when I say this is a bridge year, what's going to happen probably is Russell Wilson will do the same thing he did last year with Pittsburgh. He'll give them an initial spark. They might win a couple games here within the first month. They've got a brutal schedule, by the way. So that's why even if they go 6-11, that's a win. But what's going to happen, just like in Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson, the initial bump is going to fade. They're going to start losing, and you're going to see Jackson Dart get thrown to the wolves to get some reps in real time regular season football games so that he will be number one next year. And then we start to see the progression of the what looks to be very good young quarterback. So the Cowboys will probably eke out third place over the Giants, but I'm not expecting much from Dallas. The Commanders, very interesting. I think they will finish second. I think they're going to take a little tiny baby step back. Teams probably now are figuring out a little bit more how to defend Jaden Daniels. Another team with a awful makeshift committee. Austin Eckler, Corey Krosky-Merritt. Who knows what that kid can do? So you got another really shaky running back situation. You do have weapons now for Jaden Daniels. Terry McLaurin, obviously, holdout's over, new contract, he's back. Deebo Samuel. I've always thought Deebo was overrated, but every once in a while he'll make a big play. The defense, I think solid, not spectacular. I don't expect a lot from the Commanders when it comes to the playoffs this year. They might squeak in as the final wild card, but I think the magic carpet ride from last year is over, and that's a good thing. Then they take the offseason, tweak the roster some more, and then they come back guns blazing in 2026, 2027. In the North, my beloved Bears. I'm down on the Bears. You're like, what are you talking about, Maestro? They brought in the offensive guru, Ben Johnson. He's going to help Caleb Williams soar. They retooled the offensive line. They retooled the defensive line. They brought in a new defensive coordinator in Dennis Allen. I'm not hearing good things. I am not hearing good things. Ben Johnson, all I ever hear or read is he's upset. He's not happy with the progress of the team. I'm hearing the scariest thing of all. No, it's not Caleb Williams. It's that even though they retooled this offensive line, it's still subpar. And I don't need to see another year of Caleb Williams getting pounded into the turf. You could say the Bears' backfield situation's arguably a little bit better than a lot of the ones we've discussed. DeAndre Swift, hoping for big things from him because he doesn't have a lot of competition back there, so it's going to be on him. Does DJ Moore get over his chemistry issues with Caleb Williams? Does Rome Odunze step up and become the primary target? What are the Bears going to do with these two tight ends? Will Dennis Allen keep the defense in some semblance of competence? I'm not expecting the monsters of the Midway, but if Ben Johnson can make the offense better, so our points per game go up, can the defense bring down the points per game on their side so we have a shot of winning? Unfortunately, I'm going to be a little optimistic and a little pessimistic. I think the Bears will finish third in the NFC North, but I still don't see them doing any better than 8 and 9. And that would be an improvement, especially if Caleb Williams looks better. And there are some drives I saw in the preseason where he looked stellar. But there were other drives where the first team looked lost. Just like last year. Who's going to be in last place? The Vikings. I am not buying into the... Oh my God, you would think the Vikings were just coming off a Super Bowl appearance with all the hype. All the hype. Kevin O'Connell, everybody he coaches becomes an all-pro. Oh my God, he's so wonderful. Vastly overhyped. Vastly overrated and vastly overhyped. Now the defense is solid because you still have Brian Flores coaching them up. You got Justin Jefferson, but here's the thing. Now, number one, you got a suspension for Jordan Addison, so that means the ancient Adam Thielen will have to step back in, returning to Minnesota. Okay, you got T.J. Hawkinson at tight end, very good tight end. You've got two running backs, another bizarre, subpar running back committee with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. And then you've got J.J. McCarthy, who is a rookie quarterback. And all of a sudden they're acting like he is the second coming of Fran Tarkington and Dante Culpepper. Why? He hasn't shown anybody anything yet. He hasn't played. He missed his entire first year due to injury. Yet they're acting like he's going to be the be-all, end-all and poo-poo on Caleb Williams, who now has a full year of NFL regular season games under his belt. No. I might be down on the Bears, but I'm down on the Vikings even more. Packers I'm up on. I hate to say that. It makes me want to puke. Packers I'm up on because the Micah Parsons trade gives them a bump. This is the year Jordan Love has got to stay healthy and got to start producing. He's got now what might finally be that young receiver he needed in Golden to step up and become the number one guy. After all the years of Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson and Jaden Reed all being mediocre. Everybody's up on Tucker Kraft at tight end this year. Okay, whatever. But now obviously your defense is better. I like the Packers to win. I wouldn't have said this a month ago, but now I like them to win the NFC North. The Lions finish second. It's going to hurt losing both your offensive and defensive coordinators. There's still enough talent there to win 10 or 11 games. They'll make the playoffs as a wild card. In the South, you have one train wreck of a team in New Orleans that will obviously finish last. Could be the worst team in football. The comical quarterback competition. Poor Kellen Moore. Is it Desmond Ridder or Spencer Rattler? I get those two confused all the time. Which one is starting for the Saints? I don't know, and I don't care. Tyler Shuck obviously wasn't good enough. The rookie. Alvin Kamara is stuck. Chris Olave is stuck. The team, obviously, throughout the years have been in cap hell because they sign people to bad contracts. The Saints will be lucky to win 2 games this year. Yeah, I could see 2-15. Panthers are improving. Dave Canellis doing a good job with Bryce Young. We'll see if that continues. Chuba Hubbard, very underrated running back. Tetero McMillan, young stud rookie wide receiver. I don't know about the defense. I don't know if the defense is really all that great. They got a couple names that have big-time contracts. But I still think the Panthers are going to be better. I could see the Panthers going 6-11, 7-10. Falcons, they got the wrong coach. Raheem Morris is not a prime, top-level NFL coach. I didn't like him in Tampa. I don't like him now. This is another situation where they are going to have to try to save their young quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., fire Raheem Morris, get somebody else in there next year to take over coaching Penix up. You're going to waste Bijan Robinson's prime years. You're going to waste Drake London's prime years. Look at that. That franchise has already wasted Kyle Pitts. Now, I don't know if I want to blame the organization or Pitts. Defense is not great. And Raheem Morris, of course, is a defensive coach. So what does that tell you? I'm not as high on the Falcons. I'm not saying anybody's really pushing the Falcons, but I don't see them doing any better than 8-9. And of course, my Tampa Bay Buccaneers will dominate and win that division. 10-7, 11-6. Baker Mayfield is awesome. Bucky Irving is awesome. Mike Evans is awesome. You've got Ibuka, who's moving in now to the number 2 slot with Chris Godwin still out with injury. The defense is solid. The offensive line is solid even without Tristan Wirfs. Buccaneers easily win the NFC South. And on the West, finally, the NFC West, I take the 49ers to win the whole thing. They jump back up to their rightful place in first. Brock Purdy is solid. You still got George Kittle at tight end. The wide receiver situation, yes, is very weird. But we mentioned they just gave Juwan Jennings some incentives, so maybe he'll shut up and play this year and be a somewhat happy camper. Ricky Pearsall, will he step up and reach the next level? Brandon Ayuk is supposed to be back at some point during the season. And, of course, the key to the offense is, can Christian McCaffrey stay healthy? I think this is a year where he's due to stay healthy. So the 49ers win 11 games this year. 11-6. The defense is solid. The Rams, the Stafford back thing bothers me. I think we're looking at the end of the road for Matthew Stafford. And it's a shame because they've got great skill position players. Kyron Williams got extended. He is the unquestioned man out of the backfield. You've got Puka Nacua. You've got Devontae Adams. Great wide receiver tandem. You've got some solid players on the defensive side. I just don't know. Even if Stafford somehow stays upright, they'll probably get a wild card. Maybe. It'll be close between them and the Commanders. I could see, let's put it this way, I could see Lions, Commanders, Rams as the wild cards in the NFC. Rams will finish 10-7. Seattle, boy, this could be the biggest question mark team in the entire NFL. Will Sam Darnold rebound after those last 2 miserable games he had with the Vikings last year after a stellar regular season otherwise? You got Cooper Kupp. You've got Jackson Smith and Jigba. Great wide receivers. You got another committee in the backfield, but supposedly they are going to lean on Kenneth Walker. But Zach Charbonnet is always there, and he is one of the, if not the best backup running back in the NFL. It'll be interesting to see how Seattle plays. This could be a disaster, or they could be a playoff team. Of course, I'll hedge my bets. I'll put them somewhere in the middle. 8-9 sounds about right for them. And then I am so down on the Arizona Cardinals, it is ridiculous. And these people that think the Cardinals are going to have a great year, what has anybody on that team shown you in terms of a top-level playoff contender? Don't say Kyler Murray. Overrated. James Conner, old. Marvin Harrison Jr. hasn't shown us anything yet. Trey McBride, great tight end, can't score touchdowns. Do you have anybody on the defense you can actually name? Arizona is going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Arizona will finish 5-12. All right, so what do our other panelists say? I have got the Bills and the Ravens in the AFC Championship. Bills winning. Eagles and Packers In the NFC, Eagles winning. Eagles win again. They repeat. Dave has got the Chiefs and the Ravens. Ravens winning. In the AFC, Eagles and 49ers. 49ers winning. In the NFC, he's got the Ravens winning it all. Sam, Bills and Ravens. Ravens win the AFC. NFC, Eagles and Lions. Homer, Lions winning the NFC, and the Lions, Homer, winning everything. The Lions winning the Super Bowl. Bill, the Big Blue W, has got the Bills and the Ravens, with the Ravens winning the AFC. In the NFC, Eagles, Lions, Eagles winning. The NFC, he's got the Ravens winning the Super Bowl. Jen, Bills and Ravens, of course, Homer. Bills win the AFC. Eagles and Lions. Lions win the NFC. And, of course, Homer. Bills win the Super Bowl. Nick has got the Bills and the Ravens. Bills winning the AFC. Eagles, Packers. Eagles winning the NFC with the Bills winning it all. Aaron has got the Bills and the Ravens, with the Ravens winning the AFC. Eagles, Packers, Eagles winning the NFC. Ravens winning the whole thing. Doug is the one pick. I can't believe this. And I love Doug. Doug's been doing this now for at least a decade with us here on Sports Frenzy. Our panel has been all together. This current conglomeration of 8 has been together for at least a decade. So I love everybody. But sometimes they drive me nuts, and Doug is usually at the front of the line. Just listen to this, kids. AFC, Bills and Chiefs. Bills winning the AFC. Eagles and Bears. Yes, he's a homer for the Bears. Eagles and Bears, with the Bears winning the NFC. Okay, fine. So, if you've been paying attention, he has the Bills and the Bears in the Super Bowl. His pick for Super Bowl champion, the Kansas City Chiefs. Invalid. And he's not the first one to do this. I can't believe this. This has happened in years past. I know for a fact the elder statesman did this one time. You can't pick a different team to win the Super Bowl outside of the 2 teams that you picked to make the Super Bowl. God! So as of right now, I've emailed him and I've texted him and I haven't heard back from him. So you can check on our Facebook page when I post these picks later today. Maybe he's finally gotten a valid pick in, but the Chiefs is an invalid pick for him. And we also predicted MVP. MVP. Josh Allen for me, for Jen, and for Nick. Caleb Williams, homer pick for Doug. Lamar Jackson for the rest of the panel. Dave, Sam, Bill, and Aaron all take Lamar Jackson. Our picks for NFL Week 1. Now, we've already broken down all the teams, and thanks again for indulging me. Like I said, this is like a kid in a candy store for me talking about the NFL. It's by far my favorite of all sports. So tonight, Thursday night, September the 4th, Cowboys at the Eagles. Of course, the Eagles getting their banner hung. Their rings, I think. They're getting their rings tonight. Nobody on our panel is fooled. Everybody across the board taking the Eagles. Now keep in mind, this is all straight up. We do not pick against point spreads. Friday night in Brazil, the Chiefs and the Chargers. Everybody but Aaron taking Kansas City. Aaron thinks the Chargers will pull off the upset. Sunday, September the 7th. The Buccaneers go to Atlanta to play the Falcons. Across the board, all 8 panelists are with me and my love for the Buccaneers, at least for this week. Everybody taking Tampa Bay. Now we're going to get to a couple of these mediocre games. We're going to see some division here because when it comes to these teams that are going to be in the middle of the pack or even bottom feeders, what do you expect in week one? The Dolphins at the Colts. As bad as I think the Dolphins are going to be, they're just too talented compared to the Colts. You got two stupid head coaches, but in one of the few cases, I'm going to give Tua the edge at quarterback. I think the running backs cancel each other out. I think it's going to boil down to the talent at receiver is a little bit better for the Dolphins. I've got the Dolphins, so does Dave and Sam, Doug, and Aaron. Colts for Bill, Jen, and Nick. Raiders at Patriots, another little tricky game here. And this one, my perception has shifted on this. A month ago, I probably would have taken the Patriots at home. Now I've just got a feeling. Sometimes you go with the gut feeling. I think the Raiders are going to pull this off. Obviously, we're not dealing with bad weather yet in the Northeast. I just think the Patriots are going to need a little bit of time. Now, Stephon Diggs, I've seen, is off the injury report, so at least Drake May will have him. Still don't know about the backfield. Everybody's saying it's going to be Travion Henderson. This is going to be an ugly, ugly game, but I think the Raiders will win it by a field goal. I've got the Raiders, so does Dave, Bill, and Jen, but we're split 4-4. Patriots for Sam, Nick, Doug, and Aaron. Steelers at Jets. You could call this a double revenge game. Revenge game for Justin Fields. Revenge game for Aaron Rodgers. Both playing their former team from last year. We're not fooled. None of the panel is fooled. Steelers are the better team. I don't know how many times you're going to end up saying that this year. Steelers are better here. Even in MetLife, Steelers, all 8 of us across the board. Here's another interesting game. Panthers at Jaguars. This was probably the toughest game for me to pick all weekend. You've got the two former Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinators going at it, in Canales and Cohen. Bryce Young starting to look better. Trevor Lawrence, we still don't know. You got Chuba Hubbard, stable, number 1 guy in the backfield for Carolina. You got that weird Tank Bigsby, ETN committee. The young kid Tootin might get in a little bit. I'm going with the Jaguars because of the wide receivers. They've got better wide receivers. I think it's going to be a very close game. I could see it going either way, but I will go because of Hunter, because of Brian Thomas. I'm taking the Jaguars. Bill is with me. So are Nick, Doug, and Aaron. Dave, Sam, and Jen go with Carolina. 49ers at Seahawks. Most of us, it looks like, are predicting, as I mentioned, the 49ers to bounce back. Although Jen is the lone dissenting vote here. She's going with the Seahawks. The other 7 panelists were all going with San Francisco. One of the best games of the weekend will be the Lions at Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. I've already expressed my love for the Packers, so I have to go with them here. But we're split 4-4. I've got the Packers, as does Dave, Nick, and Aaron. Lions for Sam, Bill, Jen, and Doug. Texans at Rams, a very intriguing matchup. unless he gets injured in week 1, Matthew Stafford will be playing as healthy as he's going to be probably the whole year in week 1. Texans defense is very good. I just don't like C.J. Stroud. That massive step back he took last year bothers me. They don't have a running game that they can depend on. They've only got really one wide receiver they can depend on. I'll take the Rams at home. 6 of our 8 panelists, along with me, Dave, Sam, Bill, Jen, Nick, take the Rams. Doug and Aaron go with Houston. Tremendous game on Sunday Night Football to open the season. The Ravens at the Bills. As you could tell from the majority of our panelists and their predictions, this is going to be a preview of the AFC Championship. I'm taking the Bills to go to the Super Bowl, so I've got to take them here at home. Only 3 picks for the Bills at home, though. Me, Sam, and Jen. Ravens for Dave, Bill, Nick, Doug, and Aaron. Then finally, Monday Night Football. The Vikings at Soldier Field to play the Bears. Monday, September the 8th. I'm going to use the same logic I used last week with my Miami Hurricanes. Got to win this game out of the gate. You have got to win this game. Miami came through. I think the Bears will come through as well. Because if the Bears do not win this game at home, I don't see a lot of hope for them the rest of the season. And I know it's a very good Vikings defense, but it's at Soldier Field. Bears have to win this. Have to win this. I'm taking the Bears. Jen's with me. Nick, Doug, and Aaron are also with me. The naysayers, the poo-pooers, include Bears fan Dave, the conquistador. Sam and Bill join him as those 3 take Minnesota. So there you go, kids. That, little over an hour, your NFL preview. So the rest of the show we will devote to all the other sports, and trust me, it will flow a lot quicker. But when you get me going talking about the NFL, I cannot stop. Don't forget to set your fantasy football lineups, by the way. Public service announcement from the Maestro. So now we move on for about 15 minutes to college football. And of course, you can listen to this podcast wherever you're listening to it right now, but you have options and choices. We are on Spotify, Good Pods, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. I know, I don't screw around with some of our platforms like your Uncle Dave does with the Yubi-Tubi. I love it when he does it. I'm not that guy. I take our platforms very seriously. Thank you very much for carrying us. Don't forget to check out the Facebook page for all of our picks right now. This is the busiest time of the year for Sports Frenzy, as we've got football picks, we have got NASCAR picks, we have got baseball picks. Baseball picks hit every Sunday night or early Monday morning. NASCAR picks, football picks will be posted by Thursday evening. College football. Let's start off with the current AP poll. We've got our first updated poll of the year. Ohio State is number 1, Penn State number 2, LSU number 3. And we will discuss why those teams are ranked where they are when we recap week 1 in a minute. Very interesting statistic, fact, blows my mind. And I usually only try to give you kids these facts, these little trivia notes, if they really and truly blow my mind. Ohio State, number 1 in the AP poll. This is the first time in the regular season that Ohio State has been number one since November of 2015. Almost 10 years. Shocking to me. Again, almost 10 years since Ohio State has been ranked number one during the regular season in the AP poll. Of course, the two teams we follow, and we got to talk about that game right now, first and foremost. Miami is up to number 5 in the AP poll. Notre Dame slips to number 9. Why? Because the Miami Hurricanes did what I thought they had to do. They beat Notre Dame down at Hard Rock Stadium 27-24. Were they perfect? No. Did they try to give the game away at the end? Yes. Too conservative on offense. Way too conservative to give the ball back to Notre Dame. Of course, Notre Dame fans, oh my God, we looked so good. Oh my God, we were robbed. Oh my God, it was a great effort. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Miami let you guys have a couple big plays because of blown coverages, because even though the defense was a lot better than last year, it's still not perfect. That last drive, Notre Dame, that pass rush showed up. And your little new quarterback, C.J. Carr, looked terrible. He looked like a deer in headlights. The intentional grounding calls, he's got to learn. He's got to learn pocket presence, what to do and what not to do. Now, good for Notre Dame. They have an absolute joke of a schedule. Easy. They basically can just pencil themselves in to the playoffs. Because after the first week and week 0, they've got one ranked opponent left on their schedule. After Miami, they've got Texas A&M, and that's it for ranked opponents. My Miami Hurricanes, who everybody always accuses of playing cream puffs, we got to play Florida. We got to play Florida State. All right, so I don't want to hear it from Notre Dame fans especially. Miami's schedule much tougher this year than Notre Dame's. Now, can Miami sustain the momentum? I just mentioned Notre Dame will get in. I don't know if they're going to lose another game the rest of the year. I really don't. They should beat Texas A&M next weekend at home. And then, again, there's not a lot left on the schedule to be concerned about. Boise State did not look good in their first game this year. It's not a daunting schedule. And then, of course, they'll win 10 in a row. And everybody, Marcus Freeman's the greatest head coach ever. I think he's vastly overrated. Vastly overrated. I think Mario Cristobal is, I don't know if I can call him vastly overrated. I think he's a mediocre head coach. But he needed this win, and he got it. They did the right thing in the offseason. They got the defense fixed. Carson Beck looks like a nice, solid, stable, old-school Miami quarterback, a la Ken Dorsey, Steve Walsh, Craig Erickson. He's not Cam Ward. Cam Ward, special, magical. Carson Beck looks like he is going to be solid, consistent. Very happy with his performance against Notre Dame. The other two big games of the weekend, of course, Texas loses to Ohio State in Columbus. Arch Manning looked awful. Awful. And I'll tell you what, the one big glaring thing that stood out for me in that game, number one, it was an ugly game. defensive struggle, which is fine. I did hear somebody mention on a show here within the last couple days something that I was thinking over the weekend. So I'm going to parrot what I heard. There might be a reason why we should let these teams schedule some cupcakes week 0 and week 1 is because some of these games looked brutal. It's almost like these kids need a preseason. And maybe the cupcake games in week 0, week 1, of course, college football will never let that happen because they've got to have a couple marquee games every weekend at least, right? But yeah, Texas and Ohio State are going to look vastly different a couple weeks from now. But the problem with Arch Manning, he's got a mechanical issue that's very scary. And I've seen very, very few quarterbacks in all my years and decades of watching football. I think Phillip Rivers could do this. I'm sure I'm forgetting one or two others, but Arch Manning had a bad habit during the Ohio State game of dropping down and throwing sidearm. No. You're too young. You're too young to be doing these kind of goofy mechanical changes in game. Now, is everybody going to write off Arch Manning? No, we're not writing off Arch Manning. But he's got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. And I think right now he's completely dropped out of the Heisman Trophy picture altogether. So Ohio State wins. They take over as number 1. We mentioned that. Rightfully so, although Penn State's going to be probably bitching and pissing and moaning about it a little bit. And then, of course, LSU. And this stupid, the Battle of the Death Valleys, whatever. LSU beat Clemson. They deserved it. They played a better game. Another bad-looking quarterback performance on Clemson with Cade Klubnik. Again, maybe these kids need a tune-up game before they start playing the big boys. Nussmeier, of course, for LSU looked better. Now, I've heard he's now the front runner after week 0 and week 1. He's the front runner for the Heisman. So Brian Kelly, in a way very similar to Mario Cristobal, finally wins a big game when he needs it early in the season. In other news, in the NCAA football world, now this is terrible news for Miami, but somehow they overcame it. I was really worried, really worried that this was going to impact the team playing Notre Dame. But now I guess this kid has not been with the team for a while because the charges were pending. The incident happened a while back, but linebacker Adarius Hayes charged with 3 counts of vehicular homicide, including 2 children aged 10 and 4. Awful, terrible news. And again, not trying to make light of that type of tragedy, but another reason why I have to give credit to Mario Cristobal for somehow focusing the team on the task at hand. Thoughts and prayers, of course, to that family. I believe there was an elderly woman who also lost her life along with the 2 kids as well. We mentioned Boise State. Bad loss to USF, 34-7. That scares me for Miami because Miami's got to play USF too. Another tough game on their schedule. How about that, Notre Dame? And then the shocker of the weekend. Number 8, Alabama, crushed by Florida State 31-17. Kalen DeBoer is in dire straits. One game into his second year as Alabama head coach. There are already rumblings that they're trying to put together $70 million to buy out his contract. This was the 4th loss in 14 games for the Crimson Tide under Kalen DeBoer, where they were double-digit favorites, and they lost. And every loss was to unranked teams. 4 losses to unranked teams in 14 games for Alabama. Not good. Not good at all. Now, just scanning the rest of the games that we picked last week, nothing really jumps out at me other than the ones we've already talked about. Yes, Bill Belichick's coaching debut was a disaster on Monday night, the 1st, Labor Day. Started off great. Opening drive, they marched right down the field, and everybody kind of went, wow, myself included. Now, I expected more of that, and unfortunately, that was pretty much it for highlights for the Tar Heels. Because after that, TCU blew their doors off. 48-14. Bill Belichick has got a lot of work to do with that Tar Heels team. Then, of course, we had the farewell to Lee Corso. Oh, boy. I have issues with these cartoon characters masquerading as sideline commentators or color commentators. I don't dislike Lee Corso. Don't get me wrong. He's fine. He's harmless. You could say the same thing about Dick Vitale. But I don't get into the hype of it all. I didn't tune in to watch Lee Corso's final pick. And I definitely didn't want to tune in and watch Kirk Herbstreit cry. Oh, Kirk cried. He's such a sensitive guy. Which brings me to my Clint Eastwood Badass of the Week. My current favorite national radio talk show host on sports. He's on the Infinity Sports Network. I'm jumping ahead to NASCAR here. The Infinity Sports Network. During the week, he's on from 10 to 2 Eastern. That is Bart Winkler. Bart Winkler gets kudos from me. And he gets my Clint Eastwood Badass of the Week award. Again, he's my favorite, so I'm biased. He's one of those guys that will say the things that nobody else has the guts to say. And he's not abrasive by any stretch. He comes off as a very nice guy. But I'm with him 110% on this. I went on a rant about this in the past, and he said it beautifully. I believe it was last night. He said, number one, the dog people out there don't go nuts when I say this. It's got nothing to do with dogs. But why does Kirk Herbstreit get to parade his dog around everywhere? The one died, and then he brings in the other one. And we're all supposed to go, isn't that cute? Kirk Herbstreit gets to bring his dog to work. And Bart, like me and like a lot of other people who can't say anything because dog people will literally shit themselves with anger. And it's not about the dog, people. It's about the pampered snowflake pussy known as Kirk Herbstreit. If he needs an emotional support dog, then say it. And this is what Bart said. And I'm 100% with him on this. But don't let's just play this, I'm a pampered, entitled celebrity, and I get to bring my dog to work every time I do a game. Bullshit. Can you imagine what it would be like if every single person who owned a dog got to bring their dog to work? Nothing would get done. The carpets would smell like dog piss. You hear barking and barking and barking half the time, so you couldn't concentrate on your work. But Kirk Herbstreit, oh, Cartho, oh, I'm going to miss you. There's something wrong with that man. I know he played football, but he's missing some testosterone somewhere. He acts like a girl. And I love his once the cameras roll and the game starts, he's great. But outside of that, he comes off as an entitled snowflake. He acts like he's going through menopause. So congrats to Bart Winkler for saying what a lot of us, either you don't hear or we're too afraid to say. Kirk Herbstreit is a wussbag. All right, let's get to our picks for NCAA football week 2 real quick. Not a lot of picks. Again, we got a lot of the big top-tier headliner games out of the way in week 1. So we've really only got one major league matchup here on Saturday, September the 6th. We've got 6 games here to go through real quick. Number 12, Illinois at Duke. Even though our panel, all 8 of us across the board, are taking the Illini, this could be a trap game. This could be a trap game. We will see how good Illinois really is. This is not an easy road game. But I think it's too early in the season for us to really take that kind of a leap of faith on Duke. So everybody's taking Illinois. Baylor at number 16, SMU. Baylor showed me last week that they're still a joke. I read stories about Dave Aranda and how, they decided to really start investing NIL money into the program. And then what happens at home? Auburn beats them by 2 touchdowns. You think I'm going to have faith with Baylor on the road at SMU? No. SMU across the board except for Jen. Mrs. C is going to stick with Baylor. Iowa at number 22, Iowa State. I will say this, I'm a little shocked that Iowa State is still only ranked 22nd. I think they've played a little bit better football than they're getting credit for. They're 2-0 already after winning in week 0 over in Ireland against Kansas State. Iowa, you know the problems with Iowa. Iowa's usually offensively challenged, usually has a great defense. Some people are saying this is a trap game. It's a home game for Iowa State. I don't see it being much of an issue for them. Nobody on our panel does. All 8 of us are taking Iowa State over Iowa. Virginia at North Carolina State, one of these mediocre ACC matchups early in the season. I know NC State's at home. I'm just hearing better things about Virginia right now. So this one, our panel is a little bit closer to being split on. I've got Virginia, so does Dave, Jen, Doug, and Aaron. NC State for Sam, Bill, and Nick. Kansas at Missouri. This could be a very interesting game. I'm basically going to lean towards the home team on this one. and they are favored by 6.5. So that right there tells me that the Vegas Sharps know something that early on in the season I don't. So Missouri for everybody on the panel except Doug is going with the Jayhawks. Then finally, here's the big matchup for Saturday night. Number 14, Michigan at number 18, Oklahoma. Feels like a game that's going to bite me in the ass. Oklahoma, Brent Venables hasn't really impressed anybody for the most part in his tenure as head coach with the Sooners. This Mateer kid, though, is supposedly the real deal at quarterback. Now he's going up against a very, very good Wink Martindale coached Michigan Wolverines defense. That scares me. I'm hearing all this hype about Michigan's quarterback. Stop me if you've heard this before, J.J. McCarthy. I never buy into that crap. I never buy into the hype with Michigan quarterbacks. I will take Oklahoma to win at home. This is, again, a game where I'm going with the team that's already desperate. Oklahoma's got a bitch of a schedule the rest of the way. And they're already playing number 14 Michigan, and this could be one of the few winnable games they've got left. I mean, if you look at the back half of their schedule, it is brutal. So I'm going to take the team that needs the win more. If Michigan stumbles here, they still should be okay until they get to Ohio State. Most of the panel agrees with me. Everybody taking Oklahoma except Aaron going with Michigan. All right, so there you go, kids. Moving on to baseball. Just a few minutes on baseball. We've still got about a month left, 3.5 weeks left in the regular season. Everything's starting to settle down a little bit in terms of, it seems like we're getting very close to locking in the 6 playoff teams in the AL and the NL. There are still some teams starting to pick up steam and teams starting to lose momentum. Some very bizarre things happening already this week. Padres swept at home by the Orioles. And now the Giants are starting to get hot. So now you got to look in the rear view for the Giants. That Rafael Devers trade starting to pay dividends as he's playing very well. In the American League, the Mariners do what the Mariners do. The Mariners are starting to stumble, and they're going to let the Texas Rangers back into this, and you do not want Bruce Bochy in the playoffs. Remember, every other year with Bruce Bochy, and this is that other year. Then, of course, we've got our teams. The Conquistadors not here. The White Sox are 52-88. Dead last in the American League Central, 28.5 games behind the Tigers. The Cubs are just plugging along. It looks like they've pretty much given up hope on putting together any kind of a win streak to challenge the Brewers. Still a very respectable 80-60, which I believe is the 3rd best record in the National League. They are still, though, in 2nd place, 6 games behind the Brewers. So now, and I've been saying this the last week or two, the key for the Cubs is play well enough to secure that first round home field wild card advantage. Now, the cheap-ass Cubs, of course, because they didn't do anything significant at the trade deadline, are now picking up scraps that other teams are discarding. So they bring in Carlos Santana and Aaron Civale. Civale is probably going to be long relief. Santana, who knows what you're going to get out of him? Who knows? You know, you put him together with Justin Turner, combined, I think they might be 80 years old. Kudos to former Cub, one of my favorite players in Major League Baseball. We never should have let him go. Kyle Schwarber. And I am firmly on the Kyle Schwarber for MVP bandwagon here. Kyle Schwarber, back on August the 28th. We just missed it in our taping last week. Kyle Schwarber hit 4 home runs along with 9 RBIs versus the Atlanta Braves. He becomes the 21st player, or the 21st time we have had 4 home runs hit in the game by a single player. Interesting that it's the 3rd one already this year, though. But again, cannot praise Kyle Schwarber enough. Love Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber for MVP. Screw Shohei Ohtani. Look at the Dodgers. I mentioned how the Padres choked away all their momentum. The Dodgers right now have lost 2 in a row at Pittsburgh to the Pirates. And they're probably going to lose today and get swept by the Pirates. So nobody wants to win the National League West. Don't tell me how great the Dodgers are. They tried to buy a championship and it's starting to blow up in their face. If the Padres could take advantage of it, the Dodgers might actually be on the road in the wild card round. And then I want to give praise to another former Cub. And I'm not doing this on purpose. It just so happened this week was very, very good for ex-Cub players. Isn't it always? Aroldis Chapman. I don't think this guy gets the credit he deserves. I know he had some skeezy issues earlier on in his career. Of course, won with the 2016 Cubs, won the World Series. But I just want to point out how this guy is still doing it. 9 years after the Cubs championship. He just got a deal for next year. He's playing for the Boston Red Sox right now. $13.3 million deal for 2026. It has a vesting option for 2027. If he pitches 40 innings in 2026, then if you do the math, I believe he gets $12.7 million in 2027. He is in the middle. Here's really the big reason. Now, he gets his contract. That's something we wanted to report on. But here's the big reason we're bringing up Aroldis Chapman. And he's an older pitcher right now. Remember this, kids. And he's still throwing 100 miles an hour. He's just got that massive frame, you know. His mechanics are good. He's been able to keep himself healthy. Now, this is through, I believe, Monday. So I don't know if he screwed this up last night or the night before. But he had a streak going 46 straight batters without allowing a hit. And as I mentioned, this was as of a couple days ago. His season ERA, 1.00. Amazing. And if he stays healthy for the next couple years, number one, he's going to be probably in the top 5 all-time in saves. And I think you start talking seriously about putting him in the Hall of Fame. The Diamondbacks just got some good news. They will be staying at Chase Field for 30 more years. As the governor just signed a bill approving $500 million in renovations. So at least we know the Diamondbacks aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And they've been a solid franchise. They've always tried to put a decent team on the field for the most part. They've had occasional success. They were in the World Series a couple years ago. So good for the Diamondbacks. The 2026 season, the 2026 baseball season. Now, thank God it looks like we're not going to have to deal with the Japan bullshit that we've had to deal with in recent years, where they play a couple games really, really early over in the Far East, and then they count as regular season games. It doesn't look like we're going to have to deal with that in 2026. We have one game starting the season off on the night of March the 25th, and then we have the rest of the league, 14 games, so that's your true opening day. The next day, March the 26th. March the 26th is the earliest true opening day ever. So Rob Manfred, again, the genius that he is, does something that's counterintuitive. When we already have enough trouble in the first couple weeks of the regular season getting these games in, because bad weather is still hanging around places like Colorado and Minnesota, Chicago. Let's start the season earlier than ever. Smart, Rob. Very smart. Very smart. And finally, one more little fun fact for you guys in baseball before we move on. I just want to point this out. And Dave and I are always talking about this. The pitchers. How we get fewer and fewer innings out of our starting pitchers, yet we seem to have more and more arm issues. Saw an interesting statistic the other day. The average velocity for a right-handed pitcher in his four-seam fastball up to 95 miles an hour. That's average velocity. It is a record, an all-time record, 95 miles per hour average here in 2025. Left-handed pitchers a little bit less, at 93 miles per hour. But let's go back to compare and contrast. 2008, the average velocity for the four-seam fastball for a right-handed pitcher was 92.4 miles per hour, 17 years ago. That's over 2.5 miles per hour less. More strain on the arm now, more Tommy John surgeries, and elbow issues. Left-handed pitchers, by the way, in 2008, they were at 90.7 miles per hour. And that, again, almost 2.5 miles per hour less. Just something to think about, kids, as we're being told about the analytics geeks and how they're changing the game for the better. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're part of the problem. They are part of the reason why people are blowing their arms out, because they want them to throw harder and faster. We don't care if they pitch fewer innings. We don't care if they blow their arms out. Just strike out the other team. Short-sighted idiocy. Oh, and I would be remiss if I didn't keep you updated on our two little fun weekly facts that we tend to track here this year. This year, of course, has been the Colorado Rockies. Had a pretty rough week, Colorado did. They are now 39-101. That is a .279 winning percentage. Starting to slip back into White Sox territory now. They are on pace to go 45-117. And I know for a fact next week they play 4 games on the road against the Padres. Now, if the Padres get their shit together, that should be a 4-game sweep for the Padres, and that will further push the Rockies back towards last year's White Sox record of futility. I'm rooting for this because of Dave. Nobody should have to suffer through this for more than a year. And I don't want Dave's White Sox to keep that record for years and years and years hanging over his head as a White Sox fan. Then, of course, he's not here, but our track of 300 hitters. And since we're recording here early on September the 4th, this is through last night, September the 3rd, there are only 6 total batters in Major League Baseball hitting 300 or better. Yikes. All right. A feature, a streaming service that everybody seems to love. Now, I am not into it. I'm not going to pay extra for it. I'm going to move over here into media for just a couple minutes, and then we'll get back. We've got a big story in the NBA, and then, of course, our NASCAR picks. We all know about the deal we reported here probably a month ago, where ESPN and the NFL have got this dirty, nasty little deal now, where the NFL is going to have an equity stake in ESPN. Well, the news just came out. Red Zone host Scott Hansen broke this a day or two ago, where he said that the Red Zone channel will now have commercials, even though they used to tout it as commercial free, because you have to pay extra for it. So now it's going to have commercials, and I know there are people out there, friends of mine, who love the Red Zone, who are going to be pissed about this. Now, some people are saying you can't blame ESPN for this because the deal hasn't been finalized yet. So this is something that was in the works beforehand. Bullshit. Everything I just said could be factual, and it's still bullshit. Because once that deal got, whether it's a handshake agreement, a verbal agreement, and they decided on the terms, and now all they're doing is dotting the I's and crossing the T's, you can't tell me ESPN didn't stick their noses in right away and said, oh, by the way, I know that the deal's not going to get signed, sealed, delivered for a while. How about we start making some money on the Red Zone and putting commercials on it? You can't fucking tell me ESPN doesn't have a hand in this. And then what Scott Van Pelt was out there going, haters gonna hate. I don't listen to this kind of crap. No, because number one, you're a company man. You're not that talented. They shove you down our throats. And you get paid a shit ton of money. So what do you care? You and Kirk Herbstreit can go away. You two are probably best buds. You probably watch beaches together on Saturday nights when football season is over. Oh, God, isn't this wonderful? Isn't that Bette Midler so beautiful and amazing? Yes, Kirk, and how about Barbara Hershey? Oh, I can't stand these pansies. Yeah, throw Mike Greenberg in there, too. Three of them could be watching beaches, eating, movie theater buttered popcorn. And make sure Kirk's dog is there. All right. Big, huge scandal in the NBA. The one story we've got with the NBA this week. It has been disclosed by Pablo Torre. Now, Pablo Torre used to be on Around the Horn a lot on ESPN, and now he's kind of taken this role on of, he's got his podcast, I don't know if he's got a YouTube channel, whatever it is, but he's now turning into this guy, the rabble rouser, He discloses these stories every couple months that nobody else seems to have. And he's dropping these bombshells. So kudos to him. Doesn't seem like he's afraid to piss off the leagues or some of these big media conglomerates. The Clippers. I never liked the owner, Steve Ballmer, either. You know, they couldn't wait to sell the Clippers because of Donald Sterling. Yeah, we get it. But of course, it doesn't sound like they did their due diligence. They just knew Steve Ballmer had a shit ton of money. So they said, okay, we'll approve it. Sell the Clippers to Ballmer. Well, now it turns out they got a little scandal here involving, Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, boy, he is a tough guy for me to like. I can't deny that when the chips are down in big-time playoff games, he always comes through. But the whole nursing the injuries deal that he's gone through multiple times over the years, I'm not quite ready yet, I'm going to sit another month, but keep paying me. Well, now it turns out that a bankrupt company owned by Clippers owner Steve Ballmer was giving Kawhi Leonard $28 million to basically not do anything, not show up. Get this, it was a tree planting company. $28 million to Kawhi Leonard. These are kind of like what we used to hear about in college, remember? Where these kids would get these jobs, they never had to show up, a way to circumvent the system and pay the players. But now this is a way to circumvent the salary cap in the NBA, and that is a big no-no. So, another strong commissioner, Adam Silver, what's he going to do about this? If it comes to light that this is true, they have got to bring the hammer down on the Clippers. And of course, Mark Cuban, the genius Mark Cuban, one of the most overrated, self-important blowhards on the face of the earth. He's a prick. Mark Cuban's a prick. And for him to even think he could run for president, go back to Shark Tank, you pud. You pud. Go back to Shark Tank and leave the rest of us alone. Oh, Steve Ballmer, he would never do this. It's just too obvious. He's not that stupid. You're all stupid with the right circumstances when they present themselves. You're all stupid. Just because you have a big bank account doesn't mean you don't do stupid things, Mark. So we will see. We will keep you abreast of developments here when it comes to this ongoing investigation into the scandal in the NBA with the Clippers. In the WNBA, of course, real quick, the Indiana Fever, 21-20. They might make the playoffs, but it's not looking good beyond that. They currently hold the 8th and final playoff spot. It looks like they'll keep it. I do believe, I'm not 100% sure, don't hold me to this, but I do believe they would end up having to play the number 1 team in the WNBA, the Minnesota Lynx. So good luck with that. Still no sign of Caitlin Clark. I have a feeling she is done for the year. College basketball. One quick thing here. I have learned to respect this guy over the years. Now, he doesn't win championships, but his teams are always very, very good and seem to at least advance a few rounds every year in the NCAA tournament, and that is, of course, Rick Barnes. Rick Barnes just got a lifetime contract with Tennessee. So good for him. Stability for Tennessee. Wouldn't be shocked if Tennessee keeps making the bracket in March as a high seed every year for the foreseeable future. Always good to have stability. And of course, as I said, Rick Barnes has got a long history of stability that most of us don't seem to acknowledge because, again, he doesn't win the big dance, but he gets there every year and he gets the team through at least a couple rounds. All right, NASCAR racing. The playoffs have begun. Race 1 in the playoffs, of course, Darlington. Denny Hamlin got the pole. Lots of issues in this race. Lots of issues with a lot of the big-time drivers. Chase Briscoe, though, dominated the race. Won both stages. Wins the race. So he automatically advances to the round of 12. William Byron did not run very well. Denny Hamlin bounced back and ended up okay. Kyle Larson was okay. But not overly impressive performances from a lot of the big-time, big-name drivers at Darlington. In other racing news, the Dutch Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri won. And then the IndyCar season is officially over. Joseph Newgarden won the Grand Prix of Nashville. Alex Palou, we mentioned this weeks ago, had already locked up the IndyCar championship. So now it is official. And then Will Power. 17 years with Team Penske. He will not be returning in 2026 to Team Penske. We don't really talk that much about the NASCAR Truck Series, but I couldn't resist on this. Now, a story from a while back, well before the season began, was that actor Frankie Muniz, of course from Malcolm in the Middle, which is coming back at some point here very soon for a limited run on Disney Plus, I believe. 4 episodes. So Frankie Muniz, who played Malcolm, got into racing years ago. He got a ride in the Truck Series. It is not going well for him. Now, as of this particular incident I'm about to tell you about, from what I could tell in terms of full-time drivers, he was absolutely dead last in Truck Series points for this year. So that's not good. Now, he fell off a ladder at his home, broke his wrist. He will be out 6 to 8 weeks, pretty much meaning he's done for the rest of the year in the trucks. Not a good year for Frankie Muniz. Hopefully the Malcolm in the Middle reboot does very well, so his 2025 is not a complete and total wash. All right. Second playoff race in the Cup Series is this coming Sunday, September the 7th, 2025. The Enjoy Illinois 300 from Worldwide Technology Raceway, which technically I believe is in St. Louis. Go figure. Not one of my favorite tracks. It's fairly new. I believe this is only the 4th year they've been running the Cup cars on it. And all of a sudden it warrants a playoff race. Okay. So our panel, not overly familiar with this track. Of course, Dave and I and Sam are the ones who really know NASCAR. I've been following NASCAR for over 30 years, and Dave, I know, is probably closer to 40, along with Sam. So we kind of know what to expect from a lot of these older tracks. This one, though, evens the playing field a little bit. The Penske cars usually run well, from what I can tell here at Worldwide Technology Raceway. I'm going on a hunch with Ryan Blaney. I think this is the type of track where he's had a very up and down season. He's got a couple wins, but he's got a lot of DNFs. I think this is Ryan Blaney's week. So I'm taking Ryan Blaney, as is Nick. Dave and Aaron are going with Christopher Bell. Jen, our Frenzy Cup points leader in our competition among our 8 panelists. As at the leader, she's taken Denny Hamlin. Doug is with her as well. Bill is going with Joey Logano. I thought a lot about going with Logano. Just don't trust him. Even though he's a 3-time champion, I just never have trusted Joey Logano. When I think he's going to do well, he wrecks out. And then when I decide I've had enough of him, that's when he shows up and wins races. And then finally, Sam is taking Chris Buescher. So once again, for the Enjoy Illinois 300, Ryan Blaney for Nick and I, Christopher Bell for Dave and Aaron, Sam Chris Buescher, Doug and Jen take Denny Hamlin, Bill takes Joey Logano. All right, that is going to lead us into Moments of Silence. No last call this week, so we're just going to knock out Moments of Silence. And we have 4 competitors for the Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week, which of course you'll have to vote on since your Uncle Dave isn't here. George Raveling, Hall of Fame basketball coach, passed away here recently. Thoughts and prayers to his family and friends. Of course, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert about George Raveling, but I know very, very influential in the life of Michael Jordan. A boxing name that I have to be honest with you really didn't ring any bells, but as I read more about him, I realized we had to acknowledge him, and that is one Joe Bugner. Joe Bugner actually fought Muhammad Ali twice in Ali's prime and held on, and I think at least one of the fights went the distance, and the other fight went very, very deep in terms of rounds. So Joe Bugner fought Muhammad Ali twice and really did more than just held his own. Fought very well against the greatest. So thoughts and prayers to the family and friends of Joe Bugner. Then finally, a player who won championships on the college level and the professional level. Leroy Jordan, a linebacker who played for both Alabama and the Dallas Cowboys. As I mentioned, won championships with both. Thoughts and prayers, of course, out to his family and his friends as well. So that means, of course, in the immortal words of Ross Geller and the Conquistador, it is time to pivot to the Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week in the world of sports. Don't forget to check out the weekend edition, which I'll be recording later today in anticipation of getting you through your Saturday morning hangover. I will review the final concert in our recent run. David Lee Roth live in Gary, Indiana. I will have my review of the Amazon Prime Video series that just wrapped up, Countdown, starring Jensen Ackles. And I will also go back in time for my movie review. One of the great raunchy comedies of the 80s. One that I actually had never seen before. Up the Creek. So all that and more this coming Saturday morning, September the 6th, the weekend edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0, your Saturday morning hangover cure, the best in politically incorrect pop culture commentary. All right, your 4 nominees for the Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week are, number 1, Bill Belichick and his little plaything, if you want to call her that. Still a very bizarre situation with the age difference and her attitude. That would be Jordan Hudson. No, we're not going to call Bill Belichick a dumbass because of North Carolina's performance on the field. We're going to call him and Jordan Hudson dumbasses for going even further into this bizarre relationship by trying to trademark the term gold digger. Ha ha. But it sounds like they're serious about this. They want to use this term my understanding is, as a brand name for a line of jewelry. Oh, Bill. Bill. You're going to end up going from being considered one of the greatest head coaches in NFL history to being a laughing stock between this kind of crap and the fact that now we're all doubting your ability to coach after what happened on the field against TCU this past Monday. How about another big-time coach? Deion Sanders. And I know Deion's had some health issues lately, so I hate to throw him in here as a dumbass, but this is something completely different. We're already paying the players. It's destroying college football very quickly. And I don't think there's much doubt about that. People are going, oh, did you see the ratings last weekend? Did you see the ratings? Give it time. Give it time. And of course, Deion Sanders, because we all know he's a genius. One of the smartest men on the face of the planet, especially when it comes to money. So it's not enough. And I know he's not the only one. A guy who I normally really respect, Boomer Esiason, he's dead wrong about this also. Where it's just pay the players more, pay the players more, pay the players more. And I get tired of that attitude among former players. It's very selfish and short-sighted. You don't take the fans into account. You don't take any kind of business model into account when it comes to profit and loss. But Deion Sanders is going too far. He thinks that if a team makes the college football playoff, they should be forced to pay the players on those teams bonuses, more money, even more money. And then the farther they go in the playoffs, of course, they get more and more of these bonuses. All right, that in and of itself, I'm not a fan of that. But that's not why Deion Sanders is nominated as a dumbass. It's because he used the word equality when describing this idea, saying if we do this and we pay these playoff bonuses, then we finally achieved true equality when it comes to paying these players. How is it equality to pay some players more than others? In this scenario, in this model, it's all based on inequality. Even if you want to look at the NFL, you don't pay all the players the same amount of money, Deion. You got paid a hell of a lot more than a lot of other players on a lot of other teams. How does paying players bonuses in the playoffs make everything equal? If anything, it further adds to the inequality. as the players in the smaller schools get less and less, and the players in the bigger schools who end up making the playoffs get more and more. Dion, your math skills, your financial skills suck. Maybe you should talk to some people at Aflac and have them tutor you on how finances work, because this is not equality. This is the definition of inequality, you dumbass. Finally, locally, well, not finally, I've got one more after this, but locally, we've got a station here called WNDU within the area here around the Sports Frenzy Studios. Yes, it's associated with the University of Notre Dame, and the station is jam-packed with snowflakes. Butthurt, overly sensitive snowflakes. And I'm sure they're not the only station out there like that. I have a feeling that a lot of big stations across the country are jam-packed with butthurt snowflakes. But, and you know, your Uncle Dave and I have always stressed we care about mental health. Go see a counselor. Go talk to somebody. Talk to a family member. But I think it's become too much of a crutch at the same time. We are fostering weak-willed people who the slightest moment of anxiety comes along, they need a safe space, and they need everybody to back off because I'm having issues. I'm fragile right now. It goes a little too far. Kirk Street! So WNDU has what they call Mental Health Thursdays on their broadcasts. Fine. We're going to focus on mental health issues, and that's fine if they would consistently do stuff that was meaningful. How to deal with death. How to deal with job loss. Something like that. Legitimate issues that will cause stress and anxiety and affect your mental health. Last week, their Mental Health Thursday, they bring in somebody like in PR from the University of Notre Dame to discuss the mental health impacts of football season. How to handle the ups and the downs of your team winning and losing and going from great play to bad play. Are you fucking kidding me? These are the depths to which we've sunk? Is that we have to have a focus on Mental Health Thursday about the stresses of football season. I think that's an example of people taking something that's a game and taking it too far. That's their problem, not ours. WNDU, you're a bunch of snowflake dumbasses. Then finally, this ties into what I was talking about earlier with the red zone and them having commercials now. For some stupid reason, New York's governor, and by the way, I know I rip on New York fans, especially Yankee fans. None of you deserve what you're getting right now. Between the psycho who's about ready to get elected mayor of New York City and this idiot governor you've got, Kathy Hochul. She decides to post on social media about the red zone now having commercials. Number one, I would think, don't you have more important things to do as governor of New York than to worry about the red zone? But then, of course, she has to, and I quote, talking about the red zone now having commercials, she has to say, Trump's America. So now Donald Trump is responsible for the commercials on the Red Zone channel, according to this idiot who's running the state of New York, Kathy Hochul. This is a multi-dimensional, multi-level dumbass. Number one, work on something involving the welfare and health of your state instead of ranting on social media about the red zone, and then stop blaming the goddamn president for it because you're just a nutso libtard. Okay? Dave and I got to do everything. Now we got to run New York for you? Idiot. So you got to drop a comment for me somewhere on one of the our only social media platform is Facebook, of course. So you can drop a comment there, or your pick for the Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week, or on any of our podcast platforms. Once again, Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson for trademarking or trying to trademark Gold Digger. Deion Sanders for thinking that paying certain players in the college football playoffs more is equality. WNDU's Mental Health Thursdays here locally, focusing on the stresses of football season. And then not even bringing in a goddamn licensed psychologist or psychiatrist, but bringing in a PR person from Notre Dame to discuss it. And then finally, New York Governor Kathy Hochul for complaining about the commercials on the red zone and blaming it on Donald Trump. Sorry, she's my dumbass. She's my choice. Kathy Hochul. That'll do it for Sports Frenzy 2.0. Thanks for hanging out with me here this week. See, over 2 hours, man. Doing this alone without a break, without Dave. I get parched. My throat is now raw. But I soldier on here over the last minute to once again thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to me talk about the NFL for an hour, because I just love the NFL. And of course, now, every week, Wednesday night into Thursday morning, you will get your Uncle Dave and I discussing the action from each and every week of the NFL and NCAA football. Don't forget to check out the Facebook page. Again, drop comments there. Choose your dumbass of the week. And don't forget to listen to the weekend edition this coming Saturday morning. I think I covered everything. I got my cough in. Need to down a soda here real quick when I'm done, because I don't have much left in terms of anything in the tank in terms of talking for a while, and I got to re-energize for the weekend edition. So, with that being said, the Conquistador's not here to do our classic traditional closing, so I will just say it myself. Say goodnight to the kids, Maestro. Good night to the kids, Maestro.